Welcome to the FIS YouTube channel. This Notebook LM explainer video highlights the science behind an essential element of the PEACE framework of investigative interviewing. If you find it useful, subscribe to the channel. More content will appear on a regular basis. There are links to more resources at the end of this short video.
Let's just dive right in. We all have those memories, right? The ones we'd swear on a stack of Bibles are perfect, crystal clear recordings of the past. But what if I told you that entire idea is just plain wrong? Today we're going to look at why your memory is not a video camera. It's something much, much stranger and way more editable.
Seriously, think about it. You've got a major crime scene. Evidence is everywhere, and it needs to be collected perfectly. But in walks this rookie, who's, a little fuzzy on the rules, not quite sure how to avoid contaminating everything. Would you let them in? Of course not. It's a hard no, right?
And that's the whole point. Our memories, they're basically the crime scenes of our own lives. We pull evidence from them constantly to make decisions, to tell our stories, but most of us have absolutely no clue how that evidence was gathered, how it's being stored, or worse, if it's been contaminated along the way.
So let's start by just tearing down the biggest myth of all. This idea that our memory is some kind of perfect recording.
I mean, we all love that idea, don't we? That there's a little camcorder in our head and we can just hit play. But it's really just a comforting illusion. Our brains don't have a record button. The way it actually works is so much more active and honestly, a lot messier.
And this is the single most important thing to get. Every single time you recall an event, you aren't playing a file. You are literally rebuilding it from scratch. You're pulling all these little bits and pieces of information from all over your brain and stitching them together to create what feels like a seamless memory.
To really get our heads around this, we need a better model. So forget the video camera. It's time to start thinking about your brain more like a collaborative, constantly changing website. The scientific term for this is reconstructive memory, and the most crucial part of that definition is that phrase, fill in the gaps. See, our brains just hate a vacuum. So when a piece of a memory is missing, they'll just improvise. They'll use your general knowledge, your assumptions, and even things other people say to patch the hole.
It helps to think of it in these three simple stages. First, you have to get the information in. That's encoding. Then, you've got to keep it there. That's storage. And finally, when you need it, you pull it back out. That's retrieval. But here's the catch. Errors and contamination can seep in at every single one of those stages.
This is where the brilliant memory expert, Elizabeth Loftus, came up with the perfect analogy. She says your memory is like a Wikipedia page. Yeah, you can go in and edit it, but so can other people. A conversation you have, something you see on the news, even a single leading question can get in there and change the text.
So, if our memories really are that editable, what does that mean? Well, it means they are incredibly vulnerable to contamination.
This brings us to one of the most famous experiments in memory research ever. A group of people all watched the exact same video of a car accident. Afterwards, they were asked a really simple question about how fast the cars were going, but there was one tiny little change. Half of them were asked how fast the cars were going when they hit each other, and the other half when they smashed into each other.
And the results were just, wow. The group that heard the word smashed estimated the cars were going way faster than the group that heard hit. That one single word actively changed how they reconstructed the memory of the event. But believe it or not, it gets even crazier.
This is the bombshell. Not only did the word smashed change their memory of the speed, it made them literally invent a detail that never happened. There was no broken glass in the video at all, but their brains, prompted by that powerful word, just filled in the blank with what it expected to see in a smash.
This is what scientists call rich false memories. And these aren't just little mistakes. We're talking about entire, detailed, emotional events that feel 100% real to the person, but they never actually happened. They were planted by something as simple as a suggestion.
Okay, so all of this sounds pretty scary, right? It kind of makes it seem like our memory is just hopelessly unreliable. But what if there were ways to make that retrieval process, that act of pulling the memory out, more accurate?
This is the big question for, police investigators, for therapists, and frankly, for all of us. And the answer, luckily, is yes. There are scientifically proven techniques that actually work with the reconstructive nature of memory instead of fighting against it.
One of the most powerful tools out there is the cognitive interview. Instead of just asking, "So what happened?" it guides a person to mentally go back and reinstate the context of the event. By having you think about the sights, the sounds, how you were feeling, you're activating more pathways in your brain that are linked to that memory.
Let me give you a real example of this in action. A group was shown a bunch of images, and one of them had a clock in it. Later, a lot of them couldn't remember seeing the clock at all. But then they were given these instructions. Go back in your mind, picture the room, close your eyes, focus.
And just like that, boom. The information came flooding back. People who had drawn a complete blank were suddenly remembering the clock's round top, its white face, its gold rim. One person even remembered the exact time it showed. This proves the memory was never really gone. It was just inaccessible without the right key to unlock it.
So why does any of this matter to you? Because whether you realize it or not, you are the most critical witness there is.
All right, so what are the big takeaways here? First, and say it with me, my memory is a reconstruction, not a recording. Always remember that. Second, just because a memory feels super vivid and emotional and you're really confident about it, that doesn't mean it's accurate. False memories can feel just as real. And finally, you have to be a bit of a gatekeeper for your own past. Be aware of how easily new information can get in there and start editing things.
At the end of the day, this is about the big picture. Our entire understanding of who we are, our relationships, our whole life story, it's all built on these reconstructions. Knowing how they're made doesn't just make you better at remembering things, it makes you a better, more thoughtful, and more critical thinker about your own life. Which leads to this fantastic piece of advice. The next time you come across a really strong, confident memory, whether it's from somebody else or from your own head, just pause and ask yourself, how was this sausage made? What ingredients went into this memory? Was it contaminated somewhere along the assembly line? Don't just accept it as truth.
And so, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Think about that favorite childhood memory, or that big argument you're absolutely certain you remember perfectly, or that story you've told 100 times. How much of it is the original event, and how much of it is the reconstruction you've been editing ever since?
If you found this information informative, subscribe to this channel. More content is coming. If you want to know more about FIS and the resources available for interview training, visit their website at forensicinterviewsolutions.com or send an email to info@interviewforensics.com.